I want to welcome you guys back to another episode of Pistons Talk Podcast presented by FanDuel. End of the week with the Minnesota Timberwolves. In this one, we're going to be going over our quarter notes, box score, team stats, then open up the show to Q&A, open forum for you guys. Have any comments or thoughts with tonight's Detroit Pistons versus Minnesota Timberwolves game? Definitely leave them down below in the live chat if you're watching on YouTube right now. We'll also kind of be going over an update with Isaiah Stewart. We did get some news about that today. And then we'll be forecasting our games of the week. Pistons play 4 times again next week. So we'll be going over those games before we do end the podcast. But let's get into it, you guys. That was a lot to get into. Almost did a whole minute intro. Tobias Harris, first quarter, loved it. He scored our first 6 points and he was looking for his shot. And something that I think happens a lot of times is when the main guy is out, you never really know who's going to step up. And Tobias Harris had a game tonight where he was looking for a shot early, and you love to see it. He finished the first quarter with 11 points, and he was perfect from the field 4 to 4. Jalen Duren picked up 2 quick fouls on Rudy Gobert. One was just trying to defend Rudy. Another one was a screen that wasn't on Rudy. It was just JD kind of setting the screen. Rudy Gobert actually kind of got called for a similar type of foul. The refs weren't really having those moving screens tonight. So JD did get in foul trouble, but Paul Reed was able to come in and have a much better game. I know we kind of touched on Paul Reed the past 2 games. He had foul trouble, but tonight he did a better job of staying out of foul trouble, and he was productive. He picked up the slack. He scored 4 points really quickly as soon as Jalen Duren hit the bench. The Timberwolves did have to take a timeout midway through the first quarter, and the Pistons were leading 17-14 after a beautiful Paul Reed bucket assisted by Duncan Robinson. Danius Jenkins had a game where he picked up 2 quick fouls. There was one on a hand check that was like 30 feet away from the basket. And the second one was on a Julius Randle 3-point attempt, really late shot clock. I was kind of surprised they kind of bailed Julius Randle out. There was like marginal contact on that foul call by the officials, but Julius Randle was able to get to the free throw line 3 times with that possession. And Marcus Sasser came in for the Detroit Pistons to run the show. Good to have Sasser back after he was dealing with some hip issues. Obviously, we know that he had a hip impingement earlier this year, but Sasser was out there kind of playing backup point guard for Jenkins while he was in foul trouble. But the ball movement in that first quarter and throughout the game was just excellent. Like, the ball is just not sticking. It's moving side to side. There's player movement. There's dribble handoffs. Like, it's just been so great since Cade Cunningham has been out. And we know that these guys can move the ball. We know that they can execute in the half court. It's been a beautiful sight to see. And the bench unit did a really good job putting points on the board. With Kevin Huerter having 7 points. Karis LeVert had a really good game as well. But the Pistons were able to get out to an early lead after 12 minutes of action. It was 33-24. And you love to see the Pistons on the road against a Western Conference team that is a playoff team. Obviously, we know no Anthony Edwards. I believe there was a couple others. I think Jade McDaniels was out and A.O. DeSumo was out. But you have to play who's in front of you, and Minnesota is a very good team. They just had like a crazy overtime comeback over the Houston Rockets the other night. But being able to drop 33 points on them in the first quarter, you love to see it. You love to see a team, come out the gate with a good start. Going into the second, after a couple of shots by Dante DiVincenzo, the Pistons did have to call a timeout. Dante was the Timberwolves' leading scorer tonight, and the Pistons were up 41-34. JB didn't like what he saw out there, obviously wanted to talk it over with his guys. And the Wolves' energy and defense really stepped up in the second quarter. They went on a 10-2 run to get them back into this game. And Pistons obviously punch back. They were able to take advantage and just score in transition when the opportunity did present itself. And then the Wolves had to take a timeout after a missed three by Duncan Robinson. So it was 45-39. Pistons were very fortunate, I felt, in the second quarter because they committed 7 turnovers, but none of those turnovers turned into points. Anytime that you can turn the ball over and the other team does not uh, kind of cash in on those turnovers, very lucky. But the Pistons go into halftime up 5, 49-44. Really felt like the Wolves did bring the energy, but the third quarter happened. Third quarters have just been the Detroit Pistons like best quarters. Like it's such a weird thing because in the beginning of the season, like third quarters weren't really their best quarters. They come out of halftime. I don't know what's been going on in the locker room at halftime, but they just come out like they got Michael Jordan's secret stuff. They were just kind of just crazy. They start the third on a 7-0 run, mostly because of Asar Thompson. And the Wolves had to call a timeout because the Pistons go up 11. And the Pistons were just able to make stops getting in transition and just being disruptive on the defensive end. And I think the Wolves were just really shocked, just the level of aggression and the physicality that they were able to play. But you just really like the way that they were switching. They were forcing Minnesota into some really tough shots, late clock, and everybody stepped up defensively collectively, I thought. So you end the third up 14, 74-60. The fact that Minnesota only had 60 points after three quarters of play is excellent. You know, sometimes teams are scoring 60 points at halftime, but the Pistons really locked down defensively, especially in the half court against Minnesota. Going into the fourth, the Pistons has continued to make great plays defensively. It really helped them open up their lead. They were hitting 3-point shots, and the Timberwolves just could not generate good looks whatsoever. Whether it was Asar Thompson, Karis LeVert, um, Kevin Herter had some plays as well, switching. This team just really locked in defensively. They held Minnesota to only 32% shooting tonight. And the Pistons were just able to dominate that quarter, and they never really looked back. And they win this one 109-87. Minnesota didn't even hit that century mark tonight. And this will mark the Pistons' 54th win of the season. Love to see it. You finished this week 3-1. And if you think about it, they quite possibly could have finished this week 4-0. Jalen Duren gets that tip in overtime against the Atlanta Hawks. Overall, I really like the effort this week. I think a lot of people, as we kind of post these um, games of the week graphics every week, saw some people saying like, "Hey, if we can finish the week 2-2, I'll take it." Finishing the week 3-1 when you're without Cade Cunningham is great. I think the Pistons record right now without Cade Cunningham improves to 10-3. And everyone is stepping up. Everyone collectively is just having a good game. And when we look at the box score, you guys will see just kind of the balanced scoring from this group stepping up when Cade, since Cade has been out, excuse me. But I do want to get into one little quote because kind of update about the Isaiah Stewart news, and then we'll do the box score and then open up the show to Q&A after that. Okay. So, this was a graphic I made earlier in the day. The Detroit Pistons Public Relations Department announced that Isaiah Stewart has been cleared to resume on-court basketball activities. For you guys that don't know, after Isaiah Stewart served his 8-game or 7-game suspension, I don't remember how many games it was, with the Charlotte Hornets incident, he played a couple of games. And JB Bickerstaff said last week that Stu has had kind of like flare-ups with his calf because he's had a calf strain. And they cleared him to resume on-court basketball activities. So that is a really good sign if you're the Detroit Pistons. You're getting your backup center back, getting your rim protector back, one of your better defenders with Isaiah Stewart. I don't know the timetable when he's going to actually be back in action. If I did have to make a guess, because I know one of you guys is probably going to ask me this, probably sometime next week. Don't know if it's going to be the OKC game. Maybe it's later in the week when they play Minnesota again, possibly. But that is really good news if you're the Detroit Pistons. You're getting Isaiah Stewart back have our last couple of games of the season, and he should be, healthy and ready to go for the playoffs. As we know, last year he was dealing with a lot of knee inflammation, and it kind of forced him out to not play in that first round series against the Knicks. I think the Pistons were just being very cautious with the calf strain. You want to be cautious with the calf strain. I mean, you can just look at all the players last year that had calf strains and then they tore their Achilles. Damian Lillard had like a lot of calf soreness, and he eventually got cleared towards Achilles. I know Tyrese Halliburton last year had a lot of calf strains throughout the year. As we know, tore his Achilles in the NBA Finals. You do not want that to happen with one of your best defenders in Isaiah Stewart. But I did want to update you guys with the Isaiah Stewart news. Hopefully, we do see him sometime next week because the Pistons do play 4 times next week, and they have a back-to-back. I think they've had 4 back-to-backs actually this month, which can't remember the last time I've seen that many back-to-backs in a month. But Pistons did have a lot of time off, so it does make sense. You kind of have to make up for the scheduling throughout the year. Well, let's get into the box score, you guys. So starters, Tobias Harris, 28 minutes, 18 points, very efficient 18 points. Shot 70% from the field where he shot 7 out of 10, 50% from 3, made 2 out of 4 threes, 67% from the free throw line where he made 2 out of 3. Also had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, and 3 blocks by Uncle T. He was a plus 10 in the plus minus. Duncan Robinson in 24 minutes after returning from a sore wrist had 10 points. He shot 50% from the field and 50% from 3. Shot 3 out of 6 from the field, 2 out of 4 from 3, 2 out of 3 from the free throw line. He had 2 rebounds, 2 assists. He was a plus 12 in the plus minus. Jalen Duren in 29 minutes only scored 10 points. He was 4 out of 7 from the field, 2 for 2 from the free throw line. Did grab 13 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 turnovers, 1 block. He was a plus 8. I will say Rudy Gobert did a very good job of containing Jalen Duren. There's a reason why that guy has won so many Defensive Player of the Years. Jalen Duren had a lot of possessions where he just could not get by that guy whatsoever. In Minnesota, and I think a lot of teams lately have kind of game plan for Duren where they're just going to pack the paint to make sure that he can't get those like easy baskets where he just kind of has like a little hook shot sometimes where he puts the ball on the floor, where he finishes with his right or left hand. But I think more teams have watched some tape on Duren to try to like game plan so he doesn't have like 30-point outbursts like he has lately. I think he's averaging like 26 points per game over his last couple. So I think a lot of teams are, noticing that and trying to minimize his impact. Sar Thompson in 24 minutes had 6 points. He was 3 out of 6 from the field, 6 rebounds, one turnover, 4 steals in this one. He was a plus 10. Only had 3 personal fouls, so he is doing a better job of staying out of foul trouble. Really felt like his defensive effort tonight was just fantastic as always. Like that guy's gonna make first team all defense. Like there's no way he can't. I'm just saying it. Like this is the consistency that you see from him on the defensive end of the floor. It's just fantastic. Danish Jenkins did have a game where he did struggle from the field, finished with 13 points, but only made 6 shots out of 16 attempts, and he was 1 out of 4 from 3. He had 8 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 turnovers, plus 3. You got to credit Mike Conley, Bones Highland, and their guards. They really made it difficult for him to get comfortable in this one, and he's been getting more national spotlight. Like pregame, Kendrick Perkins said that he's the most underrated story this year on ABC/ESPN. Katie George, who was the sideline reporter tonight, they did a little, minute intro about his story and his journey. Danish Jenkins is getting more national spotlight because the Pistons are winning games without Cade Cunningham, and they're trying to figure out who's the point guard now. And it's well deserved. The guy has just worked his ass off, G League, all stuff like that, getting a standard contract. Happy for him, but he did struggle a little bit to shoot the ball. Hopefully he can bounce back against OKC on Monday, but we will see. Paul Reed had a much better game. 17 minutes, 12 points. He was 4 out of 7 from the field, perfect from the free throw line, 4 for 4, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 1 steal, 1 block, was a plus 13 in the plus minus off the bench. Tolu Smith got some garbage time, finished with a +1 in the plus minus, really didn't do anything except foul the Minnesota Timberwolves draft pick that they had this year. I want to say his last name is like Beringer or something like that. Had like a really hard foul, but totally wasn't going to let him just get an easy transition bucket. Love to see it. Ron Holland had a much better game scoring the basketball in 20 minutes. He scored 13 points, 4 to 7 from the field, 2 out of 4 from 3, 3 out of 5 from the free throw line, 2 rebounds. Did have 4 turnovers, 2 steals, and 2 blocks in this one. He finished with a plus 12. Ron Holland, I'm glad to see him having more of a productive game off the bench because he had a couple this week where it was kind of trending where like you're getting a little bit worried, but happy that he did have a bounce back game along with Paul Reed. Javonte Green in 14 minutes off the bench had 6 points. He was 2 out of 4 from the field, 2 out of 4 from 3. He had 5 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, +7. Javonte Green is just really consistent off the bench for JB, but obviously Ron was having the better game, so that's why he did roll with him. Karis LeVert in 20 minutes had a pretty good game, honestly. He had 8 points. He had 2 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, 2 blocks. He was a +13. The defensive side of the ball for Karis LeVert tonight, he was excellent. Like I have to give him his flowers, and I know we've been very hard on Karis LeVert on this podcast, but I will give credit where credit is due. Karis LeVert was excellent tonight for the Pistons. Kevin Huerter in 22 minutes off the bench had 11 points. He was 5 out of 11 from the field, 1 for 4 from 3, had 2 rebounds, 1 assist, 2 turnovers, 1 steal, finished the game with the +9. Had a really good start to the first quarter and then kind of struggled just to hit shots, but he was still pretty impactful out there for the Pistons. Marcus Sasser in 11 minutes had 1 rebound, 4 assists, 1 turnover, finished the game with a +11. And then Chaz Lanier, garbage time along with Tolu Smith out there, had 2 minutes, but he was going to look for a shot. He scored 2 points, a little mid-range fadeaway, and he finished the game with a +1. So as you guys can see, there was a lot of balanced scoring by the Detroit Pistons in this one. Tobias Harris led them in all scoring, but anytime you can have balanced scoring like that where guys are stepping up and contributing, you absolutely love to see it with your star franchise player and Cade Cunningham out. Let's get into this box score, or not box score, but team stats, just to kind of paint a better picture of this game. So the Pistons shot 20% better from the field. They shot 52% to Minnesota's 32%. So the Pistons made 43 field goals on 82 attempts. Minnesota made 27 field goals out of 85 attempts. The defense tonight was just swarming. It looked like that defense in December where I believe in December they had like the #1 rated defense. Like that defense is starting to come back, and you love to see that, especially as we get closer to the NBA playoffs. You need that type of ferocity on the defensive end of the floor, and you just love to see that by the Detroit Pistons. Pistons did shoot a pretty good percentage from 3. They shot 38% from 3 to Minnesota's 21. They made 10 out of 26 threes. Minnesota only made 9 threes on 43 attempts. Pistons shot a pretty good percentage from the free throw line, only missing 4. They were 13 out of 17. Minnesota shot 73%, where they made 24 out of 33 attempts. Pistons out-rebounded them 52-38. And you love to see that. Pistons did give up a couple of offensive rebounds. They gave up 13, but that's to be expected with like Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert out there. They're really hard to keep off the offensive glass. They all assisted Minnesota as well, 28-18. Love to see that. Had a lot of steals in this one. 11 steals for the Pistons to Minnesota's 8. 9 block shots. Pistons did turn the ball over quite a bit. 20 turnovers. Minnesota had 15. I know I said last post-game podcast, like we got to take better care of the basketball. The 20 turnovers didn't come back to bite you in the ass tonight because Minnesota couldn't make a shot to save their lives, but you don't want to have 15, 20 turnovers on a night-to-night basis. Like if you can stay under 10, like around there, you can live with it, but that's something that I've noticed that has kind of been trending up, and you don't want turnovers trending up as you're playing like OKC and Toronto next week, right? Fast break points for the Pistons. They beat Minnesota in that category as well, 21-12. Um, Points in the paint, 60-32. Fouls, Pistons had 24-13. We know this team fouls a lot. There's one technical foul, and the largest lead in this one for the Pistons was 24. Largest lead for the Timberwolves very early on was 4. But just a really good victory by the Detroit Pistons in this one. I do want to look into just the comments that you guys are leaving right now. I see Piston fan 11 in here. We got Craig in here. Got James in here. I got Ryan Boseman in here. Um, just a really good overall win. I wasn't really sure because before the game, the lines and the spreads on FanDuel were actually favoring the Timberwolves. They were a +1 in this one, which I was like, okay, they think this game is actually going to be close. But obviously, Minnesota did decide to sit out some guys tonight that are dealing with injury. But I'm happy the Pistons were able to win this one, especially after the last time they were in Minnesota. I'm sure you guys remember it was the Dante DiVincenzo and Naz Reid like teaming up on Ron Holland, and so many players got ejected. But happy that we got a win back. We get to see them actually pretty soon again next week, but it'll be a home game, so it'll be interesting to see if the Pistons can sweep the season series against a pretty good Minnesota Timberwolves team. But let's get into the Q&A. Okay. So, Piston fan 11, were my eyes deceiving me, or was Karis LeVert good today? Do you think he plays uh, a lot partly so they can move his contract easier this summer as a rotation player on a first place team or not? Okay. Karis did look good tonight. To answer your second question, I think Karras is a good defensive player. Like, the defensive side of the ball is not really what I've had an issue with this season. It's more like on the offensive side of the ball, like the ball handling, kind of being like that backup point guard where like I'd much rather him just like focus on scoring versus like facilitating, because I think he can get to his spots. He can score at all three levels. We know that he can hit threes. We know that he can, you know, dribble and isolate and, hit those mid-range jump shots if you need him. He can, put the ball on the floor, do all those things. But I think tonight you saw just like the isolation scoring, and he had some really tough jump shots tonight. But I want to give him credit. He played really great off the bench. And he was one of the leaders with the second unit, like really helping them early on in the first quarter. And I thought in the second half, he had this like huge block. I believe it was on Julius Randle, where I was like, wow, he just got blocked by like a 6'5" wing. Julius Randle is supposed to just like go up strong, but he hesitated. But like he played great. I don't really think he's playing bad on purpose to try to get his contract moved at all. I think it's just a situation where he's just trying to find ways where he could be effective on this team. I think because I remember Trajan saying it before the season started, that they were pretty comfortable with a tandem of Levert and Ivy being their backup point guards, or handling the backup point guard duties before like Danish Jenkins kind of got that opportunity. So I think it's maybe something that the coaching staff and the team just wanted him to handle. But I think when he's scoring and he's hitting shots, and you're getting the defense that you're getting out of him, like, he's a good player. It's just it hasn't been as consistent as I think Pistons fans want. But hey, you'll take it. Craig, good road win today. Absolutely. Anytime you can beat a Western Conference team at their place on the road, you'll take it any day. Um, Ryan Boseman, looking ahead to the summer and addressing the roster, I see Anthony Simons, CJ McCollum, Colin Sexton are all free agents. Should we go after one of these players to bolster up the guard spot? That is a very good question. I would say the offseason is going to be an interesting one. And it will be, I think, dependent on what Jalen Duren commands this summer. As we know, he's going to be up for a contract extension. We've talked contract extensions with you guys a lot. I feel like the past couple of years, as it does pertain to Jalen Duren. I think it really depends what he commands. I think there's a lot of people that think he could possibly get a max contract, and that could go up if he does make an All NBA team. And he could if you were able to get Duran on a fair deal, the players that you mentioned might be, within range. I don't really know what the future of the shooting guard room is right now for Trajan and JB. Because right now you have Duncan Robinson. You have him on a 3-year deal, Ryan, and his deal is partially guaranteed. Like the first year, if you look at Duncan Robinson's contract, it's a lot, but the last 2 years are partially guaranteed. I don't know if they feel that Duncan is, the shooting guard on this team next season. I'm not entirely sure. Anthony Simons, I like him as an offensive talent. I think defensively, Ryan, you guys would crash out watching that guy trying to play just remotely half court defense. He's a really bad defender. There's a reason why Boston had him off the bench. It's just because Joe Mazzulla couldn't trust him to defend anything. Like he's just really bad defensively, but there's no denying what a bucket he is, and when he gets into a groove, he can score with the best of them. CJ McCollum, honestly, man, he's been kind of a under the radar acquisition that teams just seems like they get every deadline. We just saw him recently. He can just hit some really tough, big time shots. I think he would be a really good complement next to Cade Cunningham in the backcourt because he can also put the ball on the floor. He can also play make. I've always liked CJ, and he's kind of been like a Pistons killer since his Portland Trailblazers days. Don't really know what his future, is, but I wouldn't be opposed to a CJ again. It really depends what kind of happens in free agency. Obviously, Tobias Harris is coming off the books. You have to address Javonte Green as well. Do you want to keep him? I think there's a lot of questions that we just don't have answers to. But if I'm just answering a question about would you like, a CJ McCollum in the backcourt with Cade? I would. But I think the Pistons have a lot of questions that they still need answers to in this backcourt. Colin Sexton, obviously, has played under JB Bickerstaff as well in his time in Cleveland. But I don't really know if the Pistons want to be in the market for Colin Sexton. Good defender, but offensively, it kind of leaves you wanting more personally. I like the archetype, but I think the Pistons are looking for just more of a consistent scorer. And out of all the guys that you mentioned, Ryan, I think CJ is probably the most consistent, but it really depends what he wants to do, where he wants to go. I think he will have a very competitive market this summer. There are teams that will have cap space. I just don't really know where he's going to go. He might like Atlanta because Atlanta's playing some just really good ball right now. Ever since the trading deadline, they're the hottest team in the NBA. And they keep climbing up the Eastern Conference standing. So maybe Atlanta likes CJ, but it'll be interesting to see what does happen with him. They might re-sign Herder cheap if he plays well in the playoffs. I know you asked that last time, Piston Fan 11. Yeah, they might. Kevin Herder might actually be a player that Trajan Langdon and the Pistons front office decide that they want to bring back. I wouldn't be opposed to it. It just really depends on, the ballpark figure with Kevin Herder. When you kind of just look at the shooting guard room, and I know we're going completely off topic, but I see a lot of you guys kind of looking at it, and I completely understand it because you're kind of looking for that shooting guard of the future. You have Duncan Robinson, you have Chaz Lanier, who doesn't really play a whole lot, but you're hoping maybe one day he can at least be a rotational shooting guard off of your bench. I think he can. I think this year was just solely development with the Motor City Cruise, right? So you got Duncan, Chaz Lanier. Marcus Sasser can kind of play both point guard and shooting guard. I think he's better when he's scoring. And then you have Kevin Herder in the mix. You don't really have a quote unquote shooting guard of the future. It could be Chaz Lanier. Definitely could, but I just really haven't seen enough for me to, be confidently in saying yeah, Chaz Lanier will be Cade Cunningham's backcourt mate. I just don't know. It could be a position that Maybe they like someone, they fall in love with somebody in the draft. It could be a situation that maybe it's a free agency acquisition. It could be re-signing Kevin Herter. I don't know. That one game where he was starting next to Danish Jenkins, I told you guys, I really like the defense. He was putting the ball on the floor. He was hitting his three-point shots. He looked great. Um, but I think that's the thing where I just don't have the answer. I really don't know. And I agree, Ryan Herder is definitely not getting 18 million a year. I don't see that happening either. But I mean, if you can get him in a cost-effective contract, if you're the Pistons, you probably bring him back because you like the playmaking, you like the defense, you like the versatility that he can bring because he can play shooting guard and small forward depending on the lineups. It just really depends what the Pistons want to do. I know we're probably going to be talking about this all summer long, Ryan, when we do our podcast on the weekends. But I'm just really not entirely sure what to do with the shooting guard room and the shooting guard just rotation long term. I think it wouldn't surprise me if Duncan it's still your shooting guard, maybe Kevin Herter. I think it just really depends on what JB Bickerstaff and Trajan Langdon really want to do. But I think the more glaring position for me that I'm focusing on is power forward because Tobias Harris is a free agent after this year. Like, what did they do with power forward, right? Like, did they bring him back on a cost effective deal? Do they draft somebody like Yaxel from University of Michigan if he falls? They trade up. Maybe they like a guy in the draft. Did they trade their draft pick this year and try to find that, long-term forward of the future? There's been so many rumors about Trey Murphy and if there's one player that Trajan Langdon might trade for and he trades multiple firsts, it would be Trey Murphy. Like the power forward position to me is the one position where I'm more intrigued and interested in than shooting guard right now. Because I think power forward to me is definitely a position that I think a lot of us know that the Pistons can get better at. And it's no shot to Tobias Harris. He's been such a safety blanket for this team. But I think you would just need a little bit more production out of that, that four spot next to Jalen Dern. That's just my opinion. Like, Tobias Harris could kind of like have that Al Horford role where he's coming off the bench, being that vet. Seems like he likes it here, and I think the organization really likes his leadership on and off the court. But it'll be interesting. But I'm really looking at the power forward position for me. What's up, Anthony? How's everyone doing? I'm good, man. I'm good. Just getting back in the live streaming, doing these post game podcasts. Wanted to make this one a little bit longer because it is a weekend. I haven't done a weekend podcast probably since last month when we had Zarek on. So almost going on like 2 months. But I do want to actually get into the games next week with you guys. We do play 4 times. And let's kind of go over the schedule. I made this graphic earlier today. So we have 4 games next week. So we start Monday off on the road, Oklahoma City. That is going to be a tough game. OKC is just a juggernaut of a team. We know last time we saw them, Shea wasn't playing, Jalen Williams wasn't playing, Chet Holmgren wasn't playing. We ended up beating them, but a lot of their main guys were out. It'll be really interesting to see how close this game is and if the Pistons can win, right? If they can go into OKC and win would be huge. But who knows, right? Then you got a back-to-back, right? So you got OKC away. You come home to play the Toronto Raptors. We just saw Toronto recently, right? Toronto was a team that we went to their place right before All-Star break, and Paul Reed and Cade Cunningham did their thing, and they beat Toronto like single-handedly. Like they were just so dominant. But last time we saw Toronto, Brandon Ingram could not miss a damn shot. Brandon Ingram was phenomenal. But you got a back-to-back. So you got OKC, Toronto next week, Monday, Tuesday. I do want to actually tell you guys on Tuesday, we finally are going to do something really cool on our live stream. Something that I've been working with the company behind the scenes for something that I'm really excited to share with you guys. But it's been just a roller coaster. It keeps getting delayed just because of scheduling things, but for sure it will be launched on Tuesday, March 31st on our post game podcast against the Toronto Raptors. So I did want to let you guys know that. And then the other home game we have this week will be against the Minnesota Timberwolves at home. Anthony Edwards should be back by then, so you'll probably see a much healthier Minnesota Timberwolves team at home. I'm sure a lot of people are going to try to go to that game because anytime you get to see Anthony Edwards just play, I think it's a treat. If you guys do make it out to that game, let me know because I think it'll be a really good atmosphere and a really good game. And then you finish off the week going to Philly on the road. So you got 4 games next week. So back to back with OKC and Toronto. You got Minnesota, and then you got Philly. I see 3 wins here. I really do. I think they can win in Toronto. I think they can beat Minnesota, and I think they can beat Philly. I honestly think this is going to be a very tough week for the Detroit Pistons, but I really love it. Want to kind of get into a couple more comments and questions with you guys. I see Red Baron just dropped one. Which game do you think Duran will rest for? He needs to be fully healthy, and so does Tobias and Stu. I'm not entirely sure which game. It may be Philly, if I had to guess. I don't like if you kind of just look at the schedule, Red Baron, like OKC is just going to be a really tough game to play. Toronto's on a back-to-back. You're at home. Minnesota's going to be a tough game. We just saw them. Obviously, they shot really poorly, but they were without a lot of their key contributors like Anthony Edwards and Jalen McDaniels and guys like that, right? Philly, maybe they kind of just give Tobias and Duran a rest day. I'm not really entirely sure, but it's going to be a really tough schedule to kind of just get into with it. But I'm going to wrap up this podcast, you guys. We've been live almost for 40 minutes. Appreciate each and every one of you. I do want to kind of update you guys because a lot of you have been messaging me that you can't see our shows. If you go on our live streams, we've scheduled all of the post-game shows for next week so you guys can get notified. So we'll be live for the OKC game. We'll be live for the Toronto game as well as the Minnesota and the Philly game. All those live streams are scheduled so you guys can go see that. But we'll be seeing you guys 4 times next week again. Hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. And as always, go Pistons. Peace.